All right, Jade. So let's go ahead and take a look at your final draft. So, for your hook, the way you start your paper, people view Mercy killing as murder, but is it really? Excuse me. This is an okay way to start the paper. It's kind of a little bit lazy to start it at times, and then you have this not conjunction, contraction right here that you need to get rid of. But what I would do is I would get rid of this sentence altogether. It doesn't matter how we answer it because it is your job to argue and answer the perspective for us. Don't worry about what your audience thinks. I mean, you do want to address it to a certain extent, but don't worry about us answering the question. That is for you to answer. So, excuse me again. So, looking at your intro, this hook looks and is more effective when you just leave these two sentences following it. So these two sentences, even though they are technically fragments, because you have that parallel structure, what we call with, I mean, it is a parallel structure. It emphasizes your previous point, which is good. So, and then following up, you have some examples with some mercy killings that we have looked at, and which is fine. You have the examples, but you, now that I'm looking at this again, you don't necessarily have a thesis. So your thesis isn't quite present here. You're kind of missing the thesis where you're saying this is my perspective without using that first person. Um, so you need to make sure you're including that at the end of your introduction. The examples are okay, and I see that you will probably talk about that in the rest of the essay, but you need to make sure that you have that. And then just another quick grammar note, this is the wrong main. You are looking for M-A-I-N, not M-A-N-E. Okay, so as I am looking at your first body paragraph, I'm going to talk to you about some of the things I am noticing, and then I just want to let you know for some of the things you will have a little leeway because I know I looked at this for your rough draft and I'm thinking about why I did not talk about this with you earlier. So if we extend this, I don't know if I could extend my screen. Let's look over here. So I told you when I checked your rough draft, I didn't check all the grammar things, but the essay seems to be in decent shape. I think you're lacking analysis in the body paragraphs, especially the first two. Evidence and examples set up well, but take a few sentences to explain how it relates back to the ethical component of mercy killing, which is pretty much how I'm feeling with your first body paragraph. So this is what it comes down to for your thesis, perhaps. This is more along what your thesis is. Doesn't quite answer the ethical question, which I need you to not only put in the introduction, but really focus on that ethical component. And this paragraph does have a few contractions again, as we see right here with didn't. And then here, I believe you mean certain, so this should be an E instead of a U. And then I had you delete in the Time magazine. What you will need to add to make this example better would be something along the lines of in the article from Time magazine, a man named, and then put his name because it's not his full name, shot his wife. I kind of missed that part the first time I went through your rough draft, so that's one of the things you're going to have some leeway on. Is you need to fully address that it's not in Time magazine, this whatever. This is a real example, so make clear that that is real. So you have a lot of evidence here, but I think you are missing the analysis, and you have some potential in here. When you ask this question, so was it really wrong for him to do that? Take two sentences and explain your opinion on it. Do not ask us the question as the readers. Just put the answer there, and that is where your analysis will come in. And then you talk a little bit about how it is eventually legalized, and you tie it in with Dr. Kevorkian. So adding a little bit more of maybe even something about how if this was legalized for Gilbert and his wife, that would be ethical because, you know, she was getting worse. So these kind of legal decisions should have been made previously. And then we have that number 8 there that you should spell out. But anyways, you're missing that analysis. And this is what I've been seeing a lot with the essays up until yours, and I'm sure I will see in a couple extra ones. anytime you're asking a question like this, especially in a formal essay, you should be making sure that you are just answering the question. Because that's where I think a lot of you are losing your analysis. You're not answering the question, and that's what you need to do. All right, so on to your next body paragraph. You do have some analysis that is pretty good and a pretty good topic sentence here. So mercy killing helps relieve very ill people from their pain. Wrong there. This should be IR instead of RE, but whatever. So you have some good examples here, and you do. This is a little bit more analytical, which I think will be okay because you've mentioned these examples beforehand, so I think I can let this one slide. But I would like to see a specific example here. Because you have some kind of analysis here with this is what it is, and that's why it's made legal for doctors to prescribe this medication. And then this is where the analysis part comes in. So all they are doing is stopping someone from suffering from something they cannot stop or treat. And this is actually a real interesting sentence. All Dr. Kevorkian did was make the society, I would just say society, make society face the fact that the vast number of our population who are alive and don't want to be, they live lives not worth living. So that's a little bit awkward. You may have to add a word or two here for this to make a little bit more sense. But this is really interesting. The only air of caution I would give you is because you are, I'm assuming you're tying this back to the people who are very ill in pain, make sure you are making that clear. Because obviously, there's a difference between mercy killing for people who see this as assisted suicide versus people who are suicidal for depression or other reasons, so make sure you're making that distinction. But this is actually a pretty powerful sentence, but I can see you probably need a specific example because you have examples in both Kevorkian's article and the Time article about people who are suffering from these ailments, and then you can go right back into their lives aren't worth living, they've had freak accidents, they can't live life how they used to. Okay, so as we move on to your opposition paragraph, so you do have it, and you do have the main issue that is brought up in particularly the Time article, but I think what's interesting is you are kind of missing those key examples and the key evidence you have, because your analysis is actually pretty good here. I would just like to see some more examples from you. So people shouldn't just kill someone because they're in pain, and you have the legality issue and you're trying to solve it, which I would say stray away from unless you're doing specific examples from the article. But even if, hold on, I have to pull this up. Yes, the quality of mercy killing. This is something that a lot of people are missing that I'm noticing. If at any point when they bring up the legality issue and they're bringing up the position that it shouldn't be legalized, whether that's the position they're taking or it's the opposition. So anyways, what I'm getting at is in the Time article, you have this stuff at the end that is really good examples of just evidence on what kind of the loopholes are, and I see you falling into that trap as well, that you're kind of falling into the hypothetical. Well, only the doctors should do this. This is their perspective, but you need those specific examples to support your claim. Other than that, the analysis is pretty good. You just need to integrate those specific examples, and this will make your second and third body paragraph a lot better. So moving on to your conclusion, the subject is something I think you mean no one wants to think about, with Gilbert killing his wife out of love and Dr. Kevorkian being arrested for assisting suicide. Okay, well that's a fragment because of the word with, so you either need a comma here or add something between here. Both of these are related to this same reasoning. They didn't want the person to suffer anymore. Mercy killing should not be done by another, just some random person. Sorry, get rid of that. Get rid of another. Done by just some random person who thinks they know what is best for their loved ones. This is something for the people to decide. So your conclusion is okay. It's okay for an argumentative essay if you have this kind of call to action at the end, because it's not a problem solution kind of thing going on. But what I want you to consider, well, let me think about this for a second. So in your essay, you have the examples, especially at the end, that you're kind of relying on Kevorkian's arrest and Gilbert killing his wife and some differentiation with that. And they have the same objective. They don't want the person to suffer anymore. But I'm seeing so many ways that in the two paragraphs and now seeing your conclusion that you can integrate evidence. So they don't want the person to suffer anymore and they shouldn't be done by another random person. And this sentence really gets me thinking, you have an opportunity in your body paragraphs to integrate the evidence of what Kevorkian did to ensure patients' rights and talk about the legality of it. So overall, the essay is pretty decent. There's some grammar concerns, but I'm realizing as I'm going through this again, there's a few things, particularly in the beginning of the essay, I didn't hit on when I went through your rough draft the first time, so I'll give you some leeway with that. But you definitely need some more evidence and specific things to match your analysis and the rest of the body paragraphs. So hopefully this will help you as you move on, because like I said, you have a lot of analysis in here, but use these specific examples and be as specific as you can.